Hello. How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? How's my sound? How's my audio? How are we? We're live a little bit early, about 5 minutes early, and again, I'm not sure. Look, I'm never sure how long these kind of call-in show things are gonna go, but I have some things I want to talk about, and I have some things I want to share with you guys, and talk about with you guys, and yeah, maybe take your calls and things like that, and see what you have to say. It's pretty chillax day, I think. Can I say that? Am I young enough to say chillax? Is that a word I'm allowed to use? Okay. I don't know. I don't know. No Cow Mike says Wick TV must not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. You know what? You probably shouldn't let me have a nuclear weapon. I wouldn't even know how to use it. Okay? Like how would I where would I what would I do with it? You probably shouldn't let me have a nuclear weapon. Just saying. Probably not a good idea to give rando streamers nuclear weapons. It's just, maybe that's a hot take. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure. Give me 1 second, please. Let me make sure I got everything, all my ducks in a row. CPCA, I see you back there. We'll pull you on in a little bit. Give everyone time to get here, right? Give everyone time to kind of settle in and me to kind of go over what I want to cover today. And then we'll take some calls. Sound good? Sound good. And if you, dear viewer, you, my dear Wicker, want to call in, you can. All you got to do is join the Discord, accept the rules, then you'll see a backstage area at the top of the screen. You jump backstage, and when it's time, I'll pull you on, and we'll have a discussion. Whatever you like for a few minutes at least until I'm bored of you, and then we will move you right along. That's how this goes. What do you want? Okay, what do you want to call in for, CPCA? Oh, hold on. I guess I'll just pull you in. We'll find out. You're live. What do you want?
Yo, long time no see. I just wanted to talk. You were saying about Iran and intervention, and
Yes.
I have experienced, okay, firsthand regime change. Okay,
What's your
I live.
experience?
I was in Somalia. Okay, I was born in Somalia
Okay.
during 2006. Okay,
Okay.
not 2006 actually. It was like between 2005 or 6. I don't have
Okay.
like a good.
You were born in Somalia. We got it.
Yeah.
What's your experience of regime change? What are your thoughts here? I guess I'll just ask you, do you think that America or the US or even Israel should engage in regime change in Iran? Yes or no?
Uh, no, no, no. I think considering what could happen, especially like a country like Iran, like shit can go very, very bad. Considering that unlike Iraq or Afghanistan, I mean Iran, if Iran were to collapse, you would have like nuclear material that could go into the hands of unknown individuals or unknown groups if like state collapse occurs, or if Iran were to
Well, that's
collapse, you
the
have.
that's the that's the worry of allowing them to develop a nuclear weapon, right? The worry is, concern is, and whether it's founded or not, we can talk about, right? But the
Yeah.
concern is that if the current Iran regime is able to build nuclear weapons, they will give it to their proxies, who will use it to attack our interests in the region and perhaps, worst case scenario, domestically. Um,
Well,
does regime change make that more or less likely is a question.
well,
And I'm
that'll
not
make
sure.
it worse. I think that'll make it worse because then you will have
Perhaps.
you'll have like unaccounted for like enriched uranium. And not to mention already Iran has a bunch of enriched uranium that we don't know where it is. You have no clue. If you were to
I
top
don't know
it,
if that's true. We know where their enrichment centers are.
or
We know
yeah,
where their storage centers are. We've sent sniffers, right? Um,
But
that's the thing. Like the current question at hand
uh,
is should the US use its arsenal to bomb the two enrichment centers that we know of and set back the Iranians' ability to produce nuclear weapons? Let's set regime change aside for a moment.
yeah,
Okay. Do you
yeah,
think that President Trump should give the order
right,
for
yeah,
American forces, U.S. Air Force,
hmm,
to bomb
yeah.
these two locations?
Uh, Ferdo and Natanz, or another enrichment site, or just the two main ones you're
The
talking
the
about.
the two ones I don't know how to pronounce their names. I'm not going to try, but there are two main sites
Yeah.
that are so deep underground that
Hmm.
Israel is saying that their arsenal cannot reach it. They can't do any significant damage. What they need is US forces with bombs that we have, bunker busters and things, to do it.
Hmm. Oh fuck! Wait, shit. My
You got something
oh
in the
fuck.
background there, buddy.
Yeah. I'm fixing it. Sorry. No, I was gonna say that if America was to bomb Iran, it would basically mean immediate retaliation by the Iranians on U.S. bases,
Probably. They would try.
and not to mention the possibility that their best rockets, like they haven't used really their best rockets yet. Like the rockets that are being used against Israel are either older models or maybe cheaper ranged rockets, essentially cheap drones.
They did use one of their new ones, I believe was it tonight or yesterday or it was the time
Yeah.
zones make it weird. But they did that was their big surprise or whatever. They did launch one of the new liquid fuel rockets at I believe Israel. Um
Hmm.
so yeah.
I mean, yeah, they can launch it, but like that's just how would I say, a test. What I think is like what they're that just shows like a small fraction of what they could be potentially of. You know what I mean? Like a small potential.
Do you think that Israel is able to handle Iran on its own? Yes or no?
No,
No? Okay. What gives you that
because
impression? Do you think that who do you think's like so as I understand it, Israel has total airspace control over Iran. They have destroyed any sort of air defenses that they have, and they're able to bomb literally anywhere at will. Uh, they've taken out Iran's high command. General Salami was killed in the opening salvo, as well as the general staff. Um, yes, Iran is able to strike at Tel Aviv and other targets in Israel with its missiles and rockets. But as I
yeah.
understand, the damage they are doing, while it matters, right? People are dying, isn't really degrading Iran, Israel's ability to wage war. Am I wrong? And how am I wrong?
Mm, you're not entirely wrong. I would say that Iran is launching like smaller and smaller volumes of rockets, I guess, in order to essentially eat up Israel's defense systems. Like, for example, the
Is that what
Iron
you think
Dome,
is happening?
essentially.
That they're just
Huh?
basically running Israel out of its Iron Dome rockets?
Yeah,
Maybe.
like that's the plan, essentially. Like, if it could be compared to what's happening in like Russia and Ukraine. Russia doesn't send like large volumes at once, but they send like constant, like daily rockets and drones in order to eat up the air defense of Ukraine. Like they're essentially interceptors, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And so, with that goal, they hope that eventually they would have worn down the Iron Dome so much that they can use their more advanced rockets to do more precision strikes on
Okay.
maybe uh, infrastructure like energy infrastructure, ports, cities, and maybe even like for example, water facilities for how do I say desalination plants.
That it's possible, perhaps. As everything else, I am but a streamer. I have
Yeah,
only
yeah,
access to open source information. I don't have access to any classified intelligence. I don't have access to like the number of rockets that Israel, or I'm sorry, Iran or Israel for that matter, has. I'm not. I can only make vague guesstimates on whether or not the Iron Dome is being depleted in any meaningful capability, right?
yeah,
I can see what I'm seeing, right? And Iran is hitting, like their missiles are hitting targets.
yeah.
But again, as I understand, it's nothing.
Like immediately, not really, but it'll take time. You know,
Perhaps.
it takes time to wear down the Iron Dome because, of course, there are large, stockpiles of interceptors for now. But
Mm,
over time, I'm saying is like the wearing down of each
okay.
other's air defenses, like seen as Israel's targeting their Iran's anti-air.
Yeah,
Same goes
I mean
for
they've
Iran.
basically been successful in that, right? They've shut down the Iranian Air Force. They haven't lost a single the IAF, the Israeli Air Force hasn't
Yeah,
lost a
yeah,
single plane.
yeah.
Um
From what I've seen, I guess I've heard about like one F-15 was taken down. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I
it
heard.
looked photoshopped. I saw this. It looked
Oh,
photoshopped to
not
me.
the Photoshop one. I mean, they were reporting that an F-15 was shot down, but they never showed the image. Is what I'm saying.
Maybe. Here, here's the problem though. Like if you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to get past the Iron Dome, you overwhelm it. And even Hamas knows this, right? This is a tactic. You overwhelm it with as many, um, give it as many targets as you can, and hopefully overwhelm its targeting system. So the ones you want to get through, uh, they have as I understand it, a fairly large stockpile of ammunition for the Iron Dome. It's possible that Iran could be wearing it down, and I know they've claimed to have struck some of these depots.
hmm
But again, fog of war. I don't know if that's true.
yeah. We can't confirm, but I'm
Mm.
just saying their strategy essentially, from what we've seen, is like over
Okay.
time the goal is to wear down the
Mhm.
Iron Dome. I'm not saying
And
like
yeah, okay. And
100.
so just because we do got some other people in line. So again, if you
Yeah.
were President Trump
Uh-huh.
and you had to give the go no go order on sending
Mhm.
B 2 bombers to
Yeah.
destroy the two nuclear sites, you would say no go. That would be your order?
No, too risky.
Too
Too
risky.
risky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say before we let you go?
For now, I guess I'll just like maybe.
Bye bye. Okay. Great. Awesome. What a great first caller. Okay. What a great first caller. Uh so yeah, today, for those of you who are here, we're doing a call-in show. Okay. We are doing a call-in show where we talk about issues of the day, including regime change in Iran, targeting of Iran. Um, should Trump give the order? There's reporting. There's reporting on this. So according to the Wall Street Journal, okay, Trump has privately approved an attack plan for Iran. Okay. We don't know what those plans are. Hegseth hasn't tweeted it out yet. He will shortly, I'm sure. Maybe 2 or 3 more whiskeys in, and he'll throw it up on Signal, and we'll be able to find out. But the final order, the go or no go, is currently on hold. Right. Tulsi Gabbard reportedly is threatened to resign if the go order is given. Um, she claims that the U.S. intelligence shows that they are not close to having a nuclear weapon. But here's the problem. I don't trust Tulsi Gabbard. But then again, I don't trust Trump. and I don't trust Israel, and I don't trust Iran. None of the actors at play here are someone that I trust to make this call, and this is what makes this hard. Because I'll give you my take, gang. Before we take the next caller, my take is simple. If we have operational intelligence that shows Iran is close to or has a nuclear weapon, right? Or nuclear enough enriched uranium to make a nuclear weapon, right? We should take it out if we can. And we can. Like I said, Israel's pretty much Iran's air defenses are gone for the most part. Israel has full air superiority over all of Iran. And the problem that they're having is they don't have bombs that are able to penetrate to the depth needed to take out these facilities. So, yes. Would I go or no go? That I would go. I would say go. If the intelligence is there, I say go for it. Take them out. That said, I wouldn't do regime change. There wouldn't be any boots on the ground. We don't need to do any of that. But yeah, that's my take. Bring on the next caller. You trust the CIA? Depends. Hello, you're live.
Okay. I'm gonna be the one person who's pro regime change.
Why are you pro regime change?
Let's pretend it's not Trump that's at the helm right now, though, because he's.
Oh yeah, he's. I think we can all agree. Well, maybe not all of us, right? But most of us, like, I don't trust Trump to do regime change. Like, I don't trust Trump to do it right. Like, even if
I think
he's
gonna fuck up.
He'd fuck it up, and it wouldn't be good. But give us. So you are advocating not just for bombing, right? Not just for strikes, not just for airstrikes, but for full-on regime change. Walk me through that process, and walk me through why you think it's necessary. Go ahead.
It's the same way we did it to the Shah, or we installed the Shah last time, and toppled the Iranians previously. It's gonna be funding basically insurgency groups domestically in Iran. Okay. So one of the things that's not mentioned is everyone always remembers, oh, the Iraq War, we failed that. Oh, we failed Libya. They never talk about our successes in regards to regime change.
We actually succeeded at our goals in the Iraq War when it comes to regime change. At least Saddam and his kids are dead.
Yeah, but I know, but it wasn't a stable government afterwards.
Sure, fair enough.
I'm talking about
in Iraq specifically, we successfully made regime change, right? We successfully got rid of the old regime, and now we have a new regime that is more positively inclined, even though it's not like super positively inclined. It's way less bad than Saddam was.
It is
for
way
his
less
people
bad, but
and for American interests. So there wasn't weapons of mass destruction or nothing, but we won, right? We succeeded in that. So anyway, that's go ahead.
Yeah, but like you can see the failures in Afghanistan.
Oh, Afghanistan was a failure.
Libya.
Yes.
Libya was a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But Tunis was a success. No one ever mentions that in any of these circles.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Chile, South Korea, freaking what's that called? Grenada, Panama. The ones where we win, okay, and we're successes. And you can look this all up. Anyone can look it up. Obviously, the original examples are Germany and Japan, but that's probably too far out. I'm talking about modern day successes. They don't ever get mentioned in any in public discourse amongst Americans, right?
Sure.
And I've noticed this consistent pattern, where people are hesitant to do things because of they only remember failures essentially.
Let me. Yeah, I understand. We are negatively inclined. Like, we will remember the bad far easier than we will remember the good. But let me read this super chat real quick. So $5 from Zephyr Hash to say, America learns from its mistakes. Next time they can't find a WMD, they will just repaint one of theirs and plant it at an Iranian site and say, "See." Well, thank you for the $5. But okay. So we've established, right, that sometimes regime change works, sometimes it doesn't. Let's talk about Iran specifically. Why do you think it will work here?
Okay, so let's pretend it's President Obama instead of freaking Trump. I think it will work specifically here is because a lot of the domestic populace, they routinely have protests against the regime. They're much more secular, if you look on the ground, than displayed by the regime. The regime is not that popular, overall. So I think you can support those individuals same way we supported the Syrians, right?
Okay.
And that's a stable government now. Well, not 100% stable, but
Hold on,
you know,
it's a little
more.
too early. Look, Syria, it's too early to say. I will say that it's too early to say in Syria what's going to go on with that. But go ahead, please.
He's better than Assad. Let's just say that. More
Yeah,
stable.
but that's not a high bar, right? Like,
No, but I mean, if we can get someone who's better than the Ayatollahs and stops funding terrorist groups, right? I'll take that. I mean,
Okay.
you can be a religious theocrat as long as you don't fund it, like Saudi Arabia, and you don't fund terrorist groups, and you don't do all these weapons deals and bomb, all the shit that they do to Israel. If we can do that, we can have like a public.
would you
like
be in support of like, so what, to what limit would you say we should engage in this? So what I mean by that is, would you be okay if regime change necessitated boots on the ground for an extended period of time, and I'm talking more than a year? Would you be okay with that?
American troops probably
American
not, but
troops.
I'd be okay with the mercenaries. I would hire mercenaries.
With mercenaries to do it.
Yeah,
Do you think
so
mercenaries would be able to successfully? I don't know about mercenaries, man. Like, that seems
I
a
would.
recipe for
I mean,
very bad
we've done it in
shit.
Africa.
We did.
Yeah. So I mean,
But
I think it's possible. I agree. I see what you're saying. Is they're not going to be as disciplined, obviously, as American troops. Okay, so you could run into a lot of humanitarian issues there.
yeah, there's a
Previously.
reason why they don't allow mercenary groups in the Geneva Protocols, right? Like,
Yeah, I know, but Russia works around that, and so does America all the time.
okay,
We pretend like we
I
don't.
get it. Like, it happens, but is it good that it happens? Is a question. First of all, Cavalier40, thank you for the subscription with your Prime sub. I really appreciate that on Twitch, and $5 from Zephyr Hash to say, are we really going to trust a guy who couldn't cause a regime change in his own country in 2021 to do one outside in 2025? Thank you for the $5. Appreciate you.
Yeah, we're assuming it's not Trump at this moment,
But it
because obviously
is.
I don't
Let's be
trust Trump.
clear.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah, it is Trump.
We got to deal with reality, or it is for the next 4 years. Trump's in charge.
Yeah. So yeah, I would go the mercenary route, or I would go the This is a trick I think that Trump could do, and that we kind of already do. Sort of, we just give Israel weapons, and they do the bombings for us, or we subsidize them, and they basically work as our as our quote unquote military. Like the F-35s that they're using for bombing, we gave to them, right?
Yeah.
We sold it to them. So that's our route. If IDF want to boots on the ground in Iran, hey, I'll give you logistics support. I will,
Okay.
we'll have our satellites help you.
So you would
We'll sell
share
our weapons to you.
intelligence, sell weapons to the IDF
Yeah.
in order for them to initiate and to be in charge, basically, of regime change in Iran. The problem with that is the logistics of it would be kind of a nightmare for Israel, at least right now. I don't know if Israel has the capabilities of sustaining an occupation in Iran for any length of time. They're not contiguous, right? They're not connected by land. So that would mean every transport would have to be by air. And that would just add, and they're already involved in the Gaza shit, right? They're already involved with, like, I just don't know if they're able to do this. I don't think that they have the capabilities right now to execute any kind of occupation for any length of time in Iran. Can they bomb the shit out of Iran? Yes, they've demonstrated that capability. They are able to, at least, they've removed all the air defenses from Iran, basically, and they have complete and total air superiority. The question becomes whether or not they can take out these nuclear sites. They say they can't. They say they need our help. And that's the thing. But for regime change, I don't think the IDF is capable.
Well, then my last option, which, or I said this previously, but is basically to support domestic groups, that are, enemies of the current regime, and basically fund them, give them weapons. We call them quote unquote moderate rebels, but whoever allies with us, we'll use them to take out the Ayatollahs. They'll give us the nuclear sites in return. We'll subsidize their economy. Afterwards, we'll do a bunch of trade deals, whatever we need to do. If they follow through on that deal, that's the way I want to go with it. I know that has problems because that group can betray you. That's happened in the past with ISIS, etc. But it's better than them having a nuclear weapon. I'm willing to take that risk. And so I want all these options on the table.
Okay.
And I think they should all be deployed essentially at this point. If the IEAA or whatever the group is true that Iran has a nuclear weapon, obviously if this is a WMD situation where they're just fucking lying, then yeah, I wouldn't support regime change.
Well, I mean, obviously, it comes down to, are they telling the truth? And that's a coin toss in this situation, especially with Trump and Tulsi Gabbard and all that. And that's the problem. I think I said this earlier, is Tulsi Gabbard saying one thing, Israel saying another, Trump saying a third thing, and I don't trust any of these players, right? Like, I don't trust a single goddamn one of them. So I just don't know. I don't know what the information is here, and I don't know which way to kind of lean on this. I just don't.
And then I would lie to the public and say, we're not doing regime change. No, America is not.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to lie to the public, right? But I would do all this support behind the scenes. I mean, we did a bunch of support in Syria and bombings, and we lied about our intentions when it was obviously regime change, but we talked all this shit about Bashar al-Assad, etc., etc., etc. So that's the route I would take. No one cares about Syria today. They only care about Iraq because we actually had boots on the ground. If we don't have boots on the ground and we do the regime change, then I think most Americans would actually be okay with it. So that's the way I would go.
We'll see. But thank you for calling in, sir. Anything else before you have to go?
No, that's
good, because you're going. Bye. See you later. To the void. We haven't done it to the void in a while. So yeah, it's Tessie Johnson. I see you in chat. I see you throwing out a bunch of stuff. Okay, I see you chatting up the chat, and that's a good thing. But yeah. Did you guys see the interview between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz on this? Did you guys watch that at all? So we're not going to watch the whole thing, but there is a clip I want to go through because I think it's an interesting exchange, and it's worth talking about. And so we're going to watch it real quick. Let me pull it up here. It's only about a minute long. And let's see, the volume's on. And then we're going to talk about it. Okay.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly...
They're Browns, gang.
Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government. You're the one who claims anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out
I'm
if it was a
saying
good
you don't
idea to kill
believe-
General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe
we're
that,
carrying out military strikes today.
you said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not
at all.
bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
This is
Israel.
high stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
What do we think of that exchange, gang? What are our thoughts? I got lots of thoughts. Obviously, this was from Tucker Carlson's account, and this was the clip where he thought he looked best. I have seen memes today about this, where you have a reporter, Tucker Carlson, asking Luke Skywalker, what's the population of the Death Star or some shit like that. Interesting. I think Tucker Carlson looked retarded. But I think Ted Cruz looked retarded too. I think they both looked retarded. And it gives me joy to say this. Here's the thing. Like, it really is, the question does not matter. How many people live in Iran does not matter to the pertinent issue at hand. The pertinent issue at hand is simple. Does Iran have nuclear capabilities, and how close are they to getting nuclear capabilities? It's just like I asked you, well, how many breakfasts do Iranians eat? Like, doesn't fucking matter. And the fact that Tucker Carlson asking this as a gotcha makes him look retarded. It does. It has nothing to do with the pertinent. It shows that Tucker Carlson does not understand the dynamics at play. He does not understand, right? On a fundamental level, right? Why, or he's pretending not to, right? For a gotcha. That's possible. But he doesn't understand the fundamental factors into the question of should we, and there's two questions here. Should we strike at Iranian targets to end or to disrupt their nuclear capabilities, right? And the second one is, should we implement regime change? And there are two questions that are related but different. I think a lot of people would be okay with one, and a lot of people wouldn't be okay with two. But in either case, knowing how many people, like knowing the population, right, does not play into either estimate here. And like Ted Cruz, however, where he looked retarded, is continually saying that, oh, we're bombing Iran right now. We're striking Iran right now. And it's Israel doing it. Are they doing it with our help or not? Ted Cruz might just be being honest here, but the White House says that they don't have our help currently. I don't know if this was a Freudian slip on his part, or if he just assumed and kind of went with it. But yeah. So, and that's like the here, there's a good example of this faulty reasoning, right, that people do, where they think, okay, I have a bunch of trivia facts, and if you don't know all my trivia facts, you don't know about the region, and that's retarded. I don't know, we call it trivia for a reason, because it's trivial. These are trivial things and trivial questions. And whether it be 90 million, 50 million, or 150 million, what does that number, and Ted Cruz was correct to access, what does that number have to do with the question at hand? Now, again, Ted Cruz is also retarded, so you won't catch me defending him. But Tucker Carlson did not look good in that clip. He looked like a dweeb, like one of those gotcha dweebs. It's funny, but yeah. Let's see. What does YouTube think of my take here? So $5 from Zephyr Hash to say, Wick, what's the national dish of Iran? It's important to note that Americans can create the required infrastructure for Iranian refugees. Not. You can eat the slop. Okay? You can eat the slop, okay? Jake and Bake says they couldn't be bombing Iran without us. Why do you say that, Jake and Bake? What do you mean by that? It's this weird idea people have that if America stopped supporting Israel and we turned off all our aid shipments to Israel, that they would be incapable of anything. It's a weird kind of American ethno-nationalism or ethnocentrism, I guess you'd say. And I know why people say it, but I don't think it's true. The last I looked, the weapon shipments from America to Israel were a fraction, like maybe 10% of their defense budget, which is a lot, but they still got 90% capabilities in that at that point, right? They still got 90% of their production capabilities and things like that. Again, it's been a while since I looked into the exact number, but it's around there. It's around 10, 15, 8, something like that, right? So what do you mean, Jacob Bake says? Jacob Bake says about 70% of their armaments are provided by us, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, we can't just take it back, but we certainly laid out the hammers. That's again contrary to the data I've seen. If you have a link or something, fair enough. Econo Boy says, I'm sure the billions of dollars in arms and aid very much enables Israel to have the military capability they have. That's not an unreasonable point. I think people oversell it, right? Like people act as if we stopped aiding Israel, that they would wither and be defeated, and I don't think they would. I don't see any evidence that be the case. Are you linking me DM it to me, Econo Boy. You can't put links in chat. Not in YouTube chat, anyway. You know what? We can just Google this. Percent of aid. Percent of military our capabilities. Israel. The U.S. gives to Israel. Something like that. Let's look. So we get, it's about 16% of Israel's military budget. So they get about 16, like our military aid that we give them is about 16% of Israel's military budget. So I said 10%. I was wrong. It was 16%. But if you think 16%, while significant, is going to, if they were missing 16%, if they're suddenly going to wither and die, that's just wrong. Just incorrect. Now that number might have been higher at the beginning. So if you were saying that Israel could never have formed without the aid of the U.S., like if they couldn't have sustained their initial kind of like formation, then maybe, if that's your point. But currently, if we cut off all aid to Israel, it might slow them down a little. RPG says, CNN says 69% of their arms reported in 2024 was from America. Interesting, I'm getting different numbers when I look at it and Google it. So, I don't know. Israel is top 5 in weapons production. Do you have a link to that, Kamikaze? I mean, to be clear, we get a lot of shit from Israel. Israel sells us a lot of shit. Israel sells us a lot of those smart chips or whatever. The things we get from Taiwan, they sell it to us too, right? Like, we don't get nothing from them. Yeah, check on that, Kamikaze. I hadn't heard that, so give me a source on that, please. But regardless, whether or not we are, it is a question. Like, is Ted Cruz Freudian slipping when he says that we are aiding Israel to bomb Iran right now? I don't know. Because look, the White House says no. But do I trust the White House? Also no. That's a problem with this story. I don't trust any of these motherfuckers. Okay? I don't trust any of these motherfuckers. And so who am I supposed to believe? Oh, you guess it's 69% of the 16%? So, okay, I see what you're saying. Oh, I'll just pull a little kind of boy in. It's a call-in show. Hi, what's up?
Hello.
Hi, you're live.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Oh. Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, what's up?
Oh, okay, perfect. Sorry. Yeah, so I think the confusion is that the 16% and the 70% are compatible because, and I linked you from the Council on Foreign Relations. So the 16% is basically taking the aid that we have and making it as a percentage of their budget, like there's their total military budget. And that varies, obviously. You can call it between like 15 and 20% in a given year. And I think it's obviously spiked as of late because they're having like way more military activity, but also our aid has spiked, obviously. The 70% is from their imports. So of all the imports they do to support their military, like a really large 60 to 70% of it comes from America. And I think what's important to keep in mind is that every military budget is highly labor intensive in a way. So for instance,
a lot of it goes to the soldiers and pay and things like that. Is what you're saying, or what are you saying here?
Yeah. So the reason U.S. military aid is really, really crazily crucial for Israel is because we're giving them a lot of the capital associated with their military exploits, right?
Okay. So we pay for their soldiers, basically.
Well, like if we think of like how a soldier is productive, it's from using the tools that we give them, right? And if you just give a soldier like a knife, they're not nearly as effective in combat as giving them an AR-15, as giving them a guided missile, right? And vice versa. Yeah. And so when we look at that 16%, right, we have to think that a huge percentage of that budget that Israel is actually paying for is just basically supporting salaries and benefits and administrative costs of their military. So if we were to just look at of all the money that the U.S. or of the Israeli military, and I'm sure I don't have the exact percentage, but of all of the actual equipment and capital that the Israeli military uses, it's a much higher percentage that comes from America. So if we were to get rid of all of that aid and essentially say that, hey, of all the capital available to your soldiers, that's going to get cut by like 40 or 50%. Well, obviously their capability would be like wildly scaled down to what it is today. So it isn't just like, it's not just like, 15% of their budget goes away, because that's not an evenly distributed cost. It's like saying, like this factory only spends 5% of its budget on like iron ore, but it's like a steel plant. It's like, well, fuck, if you just took away the iron ore money, this whole plant gets shut down.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
It's a needed input that without it cannot function or operate. I understand what you're saying now. I'd have to look more into it, but I'll just grant you that it's true that that's the case. This, and I don't want this to turn into an Israel debate, right? But I do worry, like, because we do put. I think it is wrong when people say that Biden did nothing to hold Netanyahu back, right? Or has done nothing to hold Israel back. I think that's not true. And I do think that by giving and providing aid to Israel, it acts as a bit of a leash, if they will. And my question becomes, when they no longer had that leash and now they have a much reduced capability, what's their next move? Then they have to look at other options. And they do have nuclear weapons, and if they do feel like Iran is an existential threat, what do? And I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, well, a leash is only useful insofar as it's tugged on, right? I mean,
Sure.
I think that's the argument
Yeah.
that many people in the pro-Palestinian movement have, is that, like, it's like it's said, oh, well, we have all this leverage against Israel, but like, where has it explicitly been exercised, right? And I mean, I think that on the margin, certainly Biden made a difference when it comes to like aid imports and stuff like that. Like, we can see Trump takes office, aid goes to zero, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. But I think that the argument's always a matter of scale and like to what degree we think we should be forcing Israel to the table and really like reining them in as like an agitator in the region, right? But I was just coming in to say, like, no, I mean, I think it's very apparent, like, no matter how you paint the numbers, that Israel, their military capability is like very, very significantly tied to America. And I think it is sensible when, whether you agree or disagree with the pro-Palestinian movement, it's very sensible when they say, like, America is enabling all of these war crimes in Israel. Like, they probably wouldn't be able to do nearly the level of destruction.
Certainly. And obviously, if we put sanctions on Israel, or not just stopped giving aid, but actually put sanctions on them, on other restrictions,
Of course,
it would absolutely degrade their capabilities. I guess, though, to tie it into the matter at hand, and since I have you here, you are President Trump for the day, and you have the call comes in, go or no go. Do we strike the 2 Iranian enrichment facilities, uranium enrichment facilities with our B-2 bombers? Do you go or do you no go, and why or why not?
I mean, I don't, it's always under the caveat that I don't have access to the intelligence that he has access to. I mean, I think that if there was credible, it's like, how do you evaluate this? It's like, if there was extremely compelling and credible material evidence that, Iran was very close to having a nuclear weapon, and it would have to be something more substantial. Like, I think, I want to say the evidence for Iraqi WMDs was essentially a single person who had claimed to be like an engineer for the Iraqi nuclear program or something. And this person was later discredited. And it's like, okay, well, if we have actually good evidence, right, that, barring some military intervention, Iran would have a nuclear weapon. Well, yeah, I think that some kind of airstrike or something like that would be permissible.
Sure.
But it's always a matter of scale.
That's the question: is can we trust the intelligence coming from this administration? And the fact that this intelligence is at odds. Tulsi Gabbard has come out and say that no, we don't have intelligence that this is the case. But Trump is contradicting her, and then Israel obviously is saying something way different.
Well, I think probably what's happening is, like, Israel had said that Iraq was very close to, having a nuclear weapon in the early 2000s, right? And
sure.
Obviously, that wasn't true. So it seems difficult. And it was also the same guy. Like, this was also Netanyahu saying this 20 years later, right? He's saying the same thing about Iran. So it might be a boy who cried wolf situation where, like, maybe it is true what he's saying, but how could you possibly trust him, right?
I don't trust any of these people, though. I don't, do I trust Tulsi Gabbard? No. Do I trust Trump?
Well,
no. Do I trust Netanyahu? Also no, right? Like,
Trump is just an idiot, right? Trump doesn't actually review anything. It's very, very well founded that he doesn't actually do any of his briefings, and he doesn't listen to anybody who does his briefings. Like, he's a very uninformed person. So when he says, like, they have WMDs, they have nuclear weapons, like, I think he's just parroting probably some of the more, like, neocon-y type elements that are telling him that. And so I'm a little bit more inclined to believe Tulsi because, I certainly don't like her as the director of national intelligence, but she is, like, the person in that position who presumably is reviewing these reports and taking her position a little bit more seriously than Trump. And that's a pretty bold thing to come out and say, especially in contradiction to the president. So I don't know. I mean, it is a difficult thing to parse out, certainly, but I mean, at the very least, hopefully, we would agree that like America shouldn't have any sort of a ground presence in
There
Iran.
shouldn't
Like,
be
that would be
regime change. I would say that. Like, I don't think we should be engaged in any kind of occupying regime change or anything like that. I don't think that's warranted.
Well, if there is regime change, at least we shouldn't we shouldn't be the ones governing it, right? It should be like
Obviously
a Syria
not.
type situation where it comes from within. So
Look,
yeah,
yeah,
I don't
look,
know.
I remember the protests from a year or two ago, right, where they were a lot of Iranian student protests were rising up against their kind of oppressive laws against women, and the headdresses and their like modesty codes and things that they had.
Yeah.
And they had a huge kind of uprising, but the Iranian government kind of squashed that flat, right?
Yeah.
Pretty brutally, actually. If there were to be some sort of popular uprising like that, I don't necessarily think we should. I don't know if we should support it or not. It really depends on the context, like who's uprising, like who's
I
rising
mean,
up. Right?
I don't know. I think it would be extremely difficult to imagine a worse government for the people of Iran than the current government. Because I mean, I think Iran kind of. I don't know. I think Iran kind of skirts the popular ethos because there are countries like North Korea or like maybe China's a bigger example of oppression. But, Iran is an incredibly, unbelievably repressive government to its people. And so, I mean, if there was some even if we were, most of the analysis that I've seen from people with knowledge on the subject said that if regime change were to happen, it would likely be sort of almost like a Pakistani style military government type situation where the government would be substantially more secular. And now it'd be an authoritarian government. Don't get me wrong. Like they wouldn't have free elections or anything, but they'd be more secular. It'd be almost like Saddam style, like, Persian nationalism. And that's not ideal, but that's obviously better than, the way things are currently going in Iran. For civil rights, at least women would be able to, wear what they would want. And if you look at the polling of Iranian citizens, Iranian Muslims who live in Iran are amongst the most secular Muslims on the planet. Like it's almost like a whole entire country of people that have preacher kid syndrome, where like the government is so crazily fundamentalist and Islamic that like 80% of the population is like, they're like lapsed Catholics at this point, where it's like, yeah, we're Muslim, but it's a more culturally identifier thing than actually having very, very. I mean, if anybody's ever met a Muslim Iranian American, like Iranian immigrants are very, very secular, typically speaking.
Absolutely.
It's very rare to find a very devout, Iranian because of the way, in reaction to how the government treats them. Well, obviously they're going to, in reaction to that, they're going to be like, fuck this government, like I'm going to, I'm going to be secular now, right?
Absolutely. I don't disagree with anything you've been saying. And I don't know. The question for me though is, can we do it effectively? And I don't know that we can. I don't trust Trump's administration to conduct a regime change
of course,
in any effective manner. However, I would say that if they just wanted to bomb some sites to keep them from having the nuclear weapon, my blessing. As you said, if the intelligence is there and they have actionable intelligence that they think that, okay, if we strike these places, we're going to set back their nuclear program by a couple years or a few years, do it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the issue that I think most people are having right now is it seems like the intelligence that Trump is going off of is like, well, Israel said so.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's clearly not good enough.
But we don't know is the thing. I don't have access to what he has access to. And that's, it's hard.
And I mean, the trouble is like, to the extent, like, look, I mean, people think of it as trivial, but like, if you go out and bomb Iran and it's like explicitly American fighters that are bombing Iran, well, all of a sudden, you give Iranian people and you give like the Iranian government a reason to directly implicate America,
and
right?
They do have and I'm not sure how many they have left, right? Because they've been using a lot, and a lot have been degraded, right, from Israeli airstrikes. But they do have the capability of hitting military bases that are within their range. I think there's about 30 bases within their missile range, and if they wanted to target our bases, they absolutely could.
Well, that's the least of it. I mean, I would be more concerned about like what if, you could have like a second 9/11 where like these cells that Iran funds are now like given the go ahead to start making attacks on American civilians. And I mean, that's what you risk when you have America directly attacking Iran. It's not like, oh, it's just like a bunch of jets that fly over Iran and I'm still living in LA or fucking Nebraska or some shit. Like, no, like that is what you're risking when you get America directly involved in any conflict. And maybe, like you said, the intelligence justifies it, but it's very difficult to trust this current administration.
Certainly, and
Anyway.
but the flip side of that is, do we want an Iranian government who does not like America, who has worked against our interests in the region and just our interests in general? Do we want them to give one of their nukes that they get to one of the proxy groups to use?
No, obviously not. I mean, to be fair, I don't think that's likely just because you'd have to have all the capital associated with actually deploying a nuclear bomb, which I don't think the Houthis and Hamas would even like come close to having that capability. But nonetheless, though, I agree. Like, I don't want the guy who talks about like, nuclear bombing Israel every other week, to actually have the capability to do so. Because that would obviously kill millions of Palestinians as well if he did that. And so that would be really, really bad. But again, it's just going to come down to what degree do we actually put trust in the Trump administration? And I would say that we should probably put, basically no trust at all. They lie about everything, like they're proven liars, right? And that's the trouble with lying all the fucking time about everything is, well, now can we trust you with substantially anything, right? So anyway, I got to go do live and learn, but I just wanted to hop in and talk.
No, thanks for kind of giving me your perspective here, giving me some of your thoughts. For now, though, buddy, we're going to send you to the void with him, gang. To the void. To the void. To the void. To the void. No, it's fun. Everyone's having fun. But yeah, that it is interesting seeing where the fault lines are being drawn here. There are a lot of people in MAGA who are very against any kind of strike, any kind of involvement. And there are others who, because Trump is saying we should do it, are like, gung-ho, let's go. Many Democrats, because Trump is saying to do it, are saying, well, no, we shouldn't do it. This is bad, right? We shouldn't get involved, blah. But look, I'll be real with you. If Iran's close to having a nuclear weapon, and we can stop that with a couple of airstrikes, let's do it. Let's go in. Let's take them out, boys. But that's just my thoughts. Again, I don't think you guys understand how bad it would be for American interests and Americans for Iran to be nuclear capable. You saw a chicken. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Fair enough. Frostback asking questions asked, do you not believe the 60% threshold they've been accused of reaching? I don't know. I don't know the intelligence, right? Again, if they have it, and if we have actionable intelligence, then yeah, strike. Do it. Do what's needed to do. Get rid of those enrichment facilities. Okay? Will they possibly strike back at American assets? Yeah. But here's the thing. We can do nothing and kick the can down the road and wait for them to be nuclear capable, and then they strike us. Or we could stop them from having that ability. I don't know. How many stars on the flag agree with my view? I don't know. Here's the thing. This is a question of right or wrong. Like, this is a question of intelligence. Is the intelligence correct or is the intelligence incorrect? Are we being lied to, or are they telling the truth? Do we have a correct view of what's happening or an incorrect view of what's happening? That's it. Tessie Johnson says Warhawk mentality. No, I really believe this. I think that if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, we are closer to war than if we strike them and they don't have a nuclear weapon, right? To stop them from getting a nuclear weapon. Like this is the same argument people make in Ukraine, right? We should stop funding Ukraine. If you want to fund Ukraine, you're a war hawk. Brother, the war is there. The war is on your doorstep. If Putin wins, that's going to be more war, not less. They're not going to stop. They must be stopped. Iran, same situation. Obviously, they're not. Look, I don't think we should intervene just to like save Israel or whatever. Like Israel struck them, Iran striking back. Let them go. Right? They're tit for tatting. That's cool. But Iran with a nuclear weapon is just not something we need in the region. It makes everyone less safe. They will simply give it to one of their proxies, and so they can have plausible deniability, and that proxy will use it against probably American troops in the region. Like one of our bases will just be gone. Worst case, they'll use it domestically. That sucks. Who has invaded Iran ever? Who has Iran invaded ever? I don't know. I know Iran and Iraq had a big war, but I'm not sure who started that. Why would they stop when Donnie is captured? Who's Donnie? Talking about Donald Trump? CPCA, you were on earlier. You were on earlier. You had your shot. You had your chance, buddy. We're doing a one-time, once per customer today, okay, gang? You want to beef on a point? Super chat at me or something. Yeah, like Iran. Look, Iran has a lot of fingers and a lot of pies. They fund Hamas, they fund Hezbollah, they fund a lot of terrorist organizations, right? They are their proxies shoot at American troops all the time. So this idea that Iran is just this peaceful, ooh, small bean, not doing nothing wrong, they're not instigating anything, they're not trying to, they're just here, they're innocent targets is bullshit. Their proxies send drones, mortars, missiles against American troops almost every month. Almost every month. You don't hear about it because it's usually not very effective. Don't really damage anything. It's shoot and scoot. But if suddenly they are nuclear capable, then they're no longer something we can just kind of swat away. Does that make sense? Well, they wouldn't use it themselves, peon rights advocate. They wouldn't. I'm not here suggesting that they'd suddenly use a nuke, launch it officially or anything. What I'm suggesting is they would suddenly one of their proxies would have a nuclear weapon. They would deny they would full deniability, like, I don't know how it happened. I don't know. How did they get there? I don't know. Maybe they bought it from Russia. I don't know. And suddenly one of their proxies would use a nuclear weapon. I just explained it, CPCA. Okay, you're live, buddy. Hello. Duck McDuck stuff.
Hey, what's going on, Wick?
Hi. What's up?
Nothing. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts. I went through a couple different news sources, a couple different websites yesterday, and stuff I've been seeing from like Christian Science Monitor, have sort of been trying to contextualize, I think, like, national interest in the case that, like, what are Arab leaders saying about the conflict? Are there still diplomatic routes? Is there any way out of the violence that's happening right now? And how are Americans thinking about American interest? And also like some like really violent stuff from like CBN and like like kind of how Fox is talking about it. I'm just curious what you think about like the political rhetoric or kind of like the shorts and those types of stories that we're seeing out of the White House and stuff right now.
So we're getting a little mixed messages from the White House. As I said earlier, Tulsi Gabbard is claiming that there is no actionable intelligence here, that there is no reason to strike Iran. They are not close to being nuclear capable, etc. She is also saying that if they do strike Iran, she will resign. Some reports have been saying that. And so what I'm seeing here, at least on the domestic side, is a split, right? A split among the people in the White House of people who want to go and take out the nuclear capabilities of Iran and those who do not. I don't see anyone serious suggesting boots on the ground, right? But I do see people advocating for airstrikes against specific targets, namely the two uranium enrichment facilities. But like I said, it's split. And I'm.
Can I say?
Go ahead.
Can please. Can I say a couple problems with that?
Yeah, sure.
These are like security problems. Is one, if you use, like, let's just imagine America and Americans agree, we're going to attack Iran. However that happens. If you use an ICBM that is large enough to strike Natanz and other enrichment sites, you're using a weapon that is geopolitically relevant. You're launching a giant, massive missile that everyone in the world is going to see. You're launching this giant, massive missile, which still might, like, even the payloads on a lot of the ICBMs for traditional explosives would be difficult to sort of penetrate. And then the other case is, if you're not doing that, you're basically mobilizing, let's just say, you're mobilizing or alerting 70% of the United States' military infrastructure in order to deliver a single weapon. So some people could conflate this to saying, well, you are necessarily asking for a larger conflict. There's no such thing as a tactical operation because of this act that would be seen by many actors as violating Iran's sovereignty in the present moment.
I mean, obviously, if we strike at their stuff, right, in any capacity, we are violating their sovereignty to some degree. But the question becomes, when is it okay to violate someone's sovereignty? And in the case of Iran, who is I think, as Econoboy laid out, and I think you probably would agree, severely oppressive to its own people. They are enemies of the United States, indeed, if not word. And they have been a thorn in the side of peace in the region for decades. The calculus simply is that region better off with them not having a nuke or with a nuke? And I think that, for me, the answer is without a nuke. And again, if the intelligence is correct, that's a big if, then I think striking is fine.
Yeah, I mean, one of these issues, is I think the U.S. does have a history of miscalculating, what in some sense, like if we look at, like, a much smaller scale something or another. I say, well, the U.S. had one of the most massive intelligence networks in the Middle East, and we used drones to eliminate terrorists formerly associated with not just violent groups, but who were who were involved planning attacks. And the way in which a lot of these types of programs they almost like recontextualize what U.S. intelligence and security is about. in my brain, when I think of like the Iranian regime and an American plane or an American missile flying over this country, it's difficult for me to, both not support the United States, but also not support that rational people can see that and say, well, this is, something must have gone really wrong. We need a really robust explanation if we're seeing something as drastic as attacks in another state's border like this.
I agree with transparency. I think that the administration should have to back up what they say to a degree. I don't think that they should reveal anything that would get like any human intelligence, put them in danger. Like, how is this intelligence coming to us? Is it coming us from human sources? Are we getting this from satellite imagery? Are we getting this from leaks within the government itself? Have we hacked their networks? I don't know. In the case of satellite imagery and other things where we can
But Wick, have we gotten any we haven't gotten any better at regime change. That's the bottom line.
Right. Like, here's the thing. Like, we do regime change actually fairly well sometimes. Iraq War, successful regime change. We successfully changed that government and changed that regime. It did not go so successfully in Afghanistan.
There were 10,000. Wick, there were 500,000 people starving for a decade in Iraq.
And yet, it's still better than Saddam Hussein's Iraq, which was gassing its own people.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, like Saddam regime being toppled is good for the region. We were lied to go into. I'll give you that, right? But Saddam being toppled and that regime being changed, we have a much more democratic, it's not a perfect, obviously, much more a constitutional republic in Iraq right now. We have people who are much more positively inclined to our interests and to the U.S. Like, we succeeded on that front in Iraq. We failed in Afghanistan, right? But we've succeeded in other places too before as well. Like, so we have a mixed bag on how successful we are in regime change. But let's not act as if the U.S. has never been successful in regime change. It has. We can name, again, Iraq War is the most recent example.
So like the reason I sort of agree, but sort of don't, is if we look at a place like Syria, the way that a place with a long Ba'athist history, which had a totally securitized regime, and then appeared to have, like, whether you call it democratic or almost like, silent and vocal majority buy-in to regime change, from the U.S.'s perspective, our ability to interact with our actual interests or goals and things like that in the region, comparing Syria to Egypt is not that different. Those things aren't serving the United States. If they do become democratic, we figure out a way to ship them arms. We figure out a way that they can get their institutions measurably improved, consistent, consolidated. But beyond this, like, the worst outcome from my huge perspective here is that, if Trump greenlights an operation in Iran that leads to more, the best scenario that's possible is not even better for the United States.
Why I don't follow that part. I'm with you in how it could go wrong. I can see scenarios where us going in and we do it poorly and it goes tits up, and we aren't, maybe we're giving faulty intelligence or something and it really wasn't necessary, and that comes out and we got egg on our face. We've just maybe they retaliate against some of our bases and we take some losses there. I could see those things happening. But when we're talking best case scenario is just complete and utter victory, right? We go in and we stop their nuclear program and Iran doesn't get nukes, and yeah, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, Bob. So okay, so if Bob is my uncle in this scenario, there's also a sort of question about what we saw in Iraq, where Iraq and Afghanistan, where U.S. backed governments were not successful long term. There may be a reason to believe in the short term that leadership from the Ayatollah as well as the IRGC is going to create a condition which isn't sustainable from Western perspectives. This one fact on the left side of our left side of your screen, left side of your face, doesn't change the fact. This doesn't change the fact that
you're conflating. You're conflating regime change with airstrikes against specific targets. They're not the same. I would be against regime change. I would be for airstrikes against specific targets to kill their nuclear program.
But if you don't have comparative in geopolitics informing the decision, we're also going to repeat a similar mistake. We're not going to have a total victory.
I don't know. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that if Trump gave the go-ahead order for the strikes on the uranium enrichment facilities in Iran, do you think that we would fail to achieve our objective there?
Yes. So I think it needs to be stated that I believe the U.S. security position should be that the White House was incapable. The White House was incapable of conducting diplomacy in the first 5 months. And if there's reasons why Palestinian, Houthi, or Syrian events are relevant, then it should be discussed why Iran seems so bullish to push forward and why the United States was so far behind the curve on what would have been required to have a deal that's done and that is done with regional acceptance. And so if it was possible, because I don't like WMDs, if it was at all possible to not have a nuclear program in place, that is the best thing. I'm not being explained why the world is more peaceful when Iran has deterrence capabilities at that level. That doesn't make any sense to me.
The question is, would they use it for deterrence or would they use it in an offensive measure? And I think Iran has demonstrated that they are willing to arm proxies, and with plausible deniability, those proxies are able to wield their weapons in order to achieve the aims of Iran in the region. And I see a very, if, again, this big if, Iran does become nuclear capable, what's to stop them from giving one of their proxy groups a nuclear weapon? And I don't think there's anything. Why would it stop them? They would have plausible deniability. There would people be saying, well, it wasn't Iran. It was Hezbollah, or it was this other group, or this other terrorist organization. And Iran would obviously have plausible deniability there. But now we have the threat of nuclear attack from from proxies. And I again, what's to stop them from doing that? Do I think Iran would do that? Yes, I think they would.
So I think that question is coupled. I think the question of if Iran would arm someone with a nuclear weapon is asking what a rogue actor is sophisticated, what independent lone wolf group or individual
they're not lone wolves, to be clear. They're connected
to that type of operation.
They're connected to Iran. This is what we fail to see. They are being funded, propped up, and led by Iran, but they do it through proxy, so they have plausible deniability. So they're not lone wolf actors. So Iran gives a nuclear weapon to one of their proxies in the region and says, you know what, that port over there, right, in Israel, it needs to be gone. Make it so. And then they smuggle in a nuclear weapon. That's it.
Yeah. The reason I don't think that is totally true is because I think my belief is that Samuel Huntington's theory called Clash of Civilizations, Iran, while it is not Arab, has had close ties to the Muslim world, and they would not condemn one of their neighbors to have literally every single one of their civilian family, government, citizens slaughtered because a lone wolf or a militant extension in a zero sum, kind of like a last stand motion would release a single 1 to 3 nuclear weapons on a region. I don't see that as a viable storyline. That would
we
be.
see this
I
happening
don't.
with October 7th,
I don't.
man. Iran.
You have to explain it. Explain this to me then.
Sure.
Wait, explain October 7th.
Okay, October 7th. Again, Hamas received funds from Iran, right? They've received lots of weapons and funds from Iran, training from Iran, et cetera, et cetera. They struck at Israel. What's happening in Gaza right now? They're being wiped off the map. They're being wiped off the map. So you saying, well, Iran wouldn't tolerate any, they wouldn't sacrifice their people or this other people and wouldn't tolerate the sacrifice of this other people to achieve their ends. They're doing it right the fuck now, right? They're doing it as we speak. They're tolerating it.
Yeah, so Wick, but we can also see motions from the West Bank and other places that are seeking to reunify some semblance of whatever government would look like, which would I do think some people in Palestine are pro-Hamas. I do think there's also people in Palestine and Gaza who would like to see a reformist movement
Sure.
at some point reinstantiate sort of the systems of government that they had before.
But you agree that the Palestinians are being used as fodder for Hamas, and
I totally agree that I totally agree that that civilians have been caught in the crossfire.
No, not just caught in the crossfire.
You can deny that.
It is by design. They have used them, right? The civilians in Palestine. Hamas has used the civilians in Palestine as a sacrifice in order to turn the world against Israel. A
sacrifice. So
they purposely instigated an attack in order for this outcome.
Wick, different. I would say that Hezbollah was the one who has already shown that they were required to get involved because Hezbollah as well as the Houthis have said that they will not be as geopolitically irrelevant as Iran has in the past. And so in a different sort of case, I do think there's civilian victims in Palestine, but in terms of the sacrificial lamb, as one has to find one, to me that is I don't see that as leverage for an argument. I don't see that as leverage for an argument.
Well, they say they're doing this. They say we are using the blood of Palestinian civilians in order to turn the world against Iran. Israel. This is what Hamas says. The leadership of Hamas says. This is their stated goal. And Hamas has received funding from Iran, weapons from Iran, support from Iran. Hezbollah has also received the same. Iran is like an octopus. They have their tentacles everywhere in the region, and they are a threat, right? They are an obstacle to peace.
But but here's a different scenario. If I joined the CIA, and let's say I joined the CIA and become a CIA spook, and my job as a spook or a spy is saying that, well, like, these are actually the types of situations that by definition I was designed to sort of resolve and stuff. So why again is it the case that we are sending a ICBM or multiple we're sending entire Air Force units
to
go do this thing?
It would take two sorties.
It doesn't make sense.
It would take two sorties of B-2 bombers to go in and use bunker busters to take out these two uranium facilities. We don't need ICBMs. We don't need anything like that. We have the capabilities to use B-2 bombers to deliver payloads that were capable of destroying these sites. 2, maybe 3 sorties. That's it. Israel's already degraded Iran's air defense capabilities. They got nothing. Israel has complete air superiority over the region. They couldn't stop us if we wanted.
mean, that was my main thing. That was sort of what I was, asking about was, with like CBN News. And like again, I don't like the headlines that are saying this is like a one-sided issue where it's like, okay, well, no matter what this is, it wasn't productive. If it does become anything, which it shouldn't, then whatever that thing is just bad because it was a failure to start with. The option, when the option is a global excitation,
I mean, you could
that's gonna
argue that
can
Trump
potentially
failed
result.
by getting us out of the Iran deal that Obama crafted. Like, I mean, that's an argument you can make, and you probably wouldn't be wrong. But I mean, water under the bridge, right? It's done. If we could turn back time, great. We can't. This
But
is
why
where we are
couldn't?
now.
But when you can't get back into the deal, and the cost of that is, potentially, we're talking 500,000 human lives, maybe more. Um, you know, if we see any corollary, Iran is a large country. It's not like Iraq. It's not like Afghanistan.
Sure.
Their GDP isn't nothing. They have what's their per capita is like 1,500 or 2,000 a year. It's a modern state like anyone else. And the fact that there wasn't enough, there were apparently, the fruit juice was too good to not be squeezed. And once you squeezed it, you realized that, all you were going to have left was the rinds anyways. Like, it makes me really sad and angry even at myself for taking my own sort of foot off the gas and trying to consider, just like, I don't know, how we're all connected, bro. We're all connected, man.
Look, in a perfect world, we could all sing Kumbaya, link arms. There would be no need for war, right? Imagine no religion, right? Imagine no wars. Imagine all that. But we don't live in that world, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, there's two questions. Is Iran close to a nuclear weapon? And can our strikes degrade their capabilities? If the answer to both those questions are yes, I say go. But that's the question. I don't know. I don't know if we're being fed bullshit. And we might be being fed bullshit. I just don't know. But anyway, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on stage. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, that's just the end of the day. Those are the questions we should be asking. Are they capable? Are they close or near capable to developing a nuclear weapon? If yes, can our airstrikes set them back and stop them? If yes, then go ahead. That's it. That's the questions that matter. We could talk later about, well, okay, how can we stop this in the future? Are there ways to make a deal or something where we don't have to do this again? What were the failures that led to us having to use military force in this manner? And we could have a whole discussion on that. Fair enough. But this is where we are. These are the questions. If the answer is no to either of those, then don't go, obviously. I just don't have the information to tell you. I can't tell you, gang. This is a portion of the show when I pass my hat around and say, please, dear viewers, please, if you want to support the channel, there's ways to do so. You can send me a super chat. You can send a like. You can subscribe to the channel. You can throw me some Twitch bits. You can sub to me on Twitch. All these things support and help the channel. Allow me to keep going and keep getting some great discussions and keep having these conversations with you guys. Yeah, we're not ending right now, Scorned One. So if you plan to call in about 15 minutes, so yeah, that's fine. Oh. You're here. Let's write a screenplay. Well, welcome here. Let's see. I did want to go through a meme. Okay, so we saw the Tucker Carlson. We saw the Tucker Carlson interview clip. Okay, we saw that. There's been obviously a lot of discussions around that and memes and all these things. I wanna look at a meme, a specific meme, and I want to look at the response to the meme. And And I just want to dissect it a little bit because I think it's interesting. And I think it's worth considering. Let's look. So here's the meme that's being replied to. Obviously, I referred to this earlier. So first of all, thank you, Feder Methodist, for the 500 bits. Doodles is a warmonger. He's monging war. Look, war isn't always bad. Well, no, that's not true. War is always bad, but it's sometimes not the worst option, right? Sometimes not going to war is worse than going to war. War always bad, but sometimes not going to war is worse. And to be clear, 2 strikes, right, against 2 sites is an airstrike. It's not a war. Obviously, my opinion changes if it's an extended operation past a certain point, or if there are boots on the ground. And obviously, if the intelligence isn't there, then we don't go. But obviously, we saw the clip earlier of Tucker Carlson asking Mr. Cruz, Senator Cruz, oh, what's the population of Iran? Blah, blah, blah. And so this meme that Ted Cruz posted of what's the population of the Death Star to Luke Skywalker, it's funny. It's a little haha. But not everyone agrees with me that it's funny. And so this gentleman, Eudaimonia, has a take. So we're going to read the take, and we're going to go through it, and we're going to discuss why. I don't know if he's autistic or is just incapable of hypotheticals or examples or anything, but he's pretty stupid. Let's go through it. Says such cope and weird. 1. So, just to be clear, if we're comparing the Death Star, you want to absolutely destroy, blow to smithereens, annihilate Iran, not just a political state, but the nation's existence entirely? What is this premise? What are you, like, this is such a reach on this meme. Like, oh, so we have to take every single thing as a one-to-one because of the Star Wars thing, and we have to extrapolate this into absurdity? No, we do not. Obviously, the point was that the amount of people on the Death Star wasn't the question at hand when striking against the Death Star. That's obviously what's being implied by the tweet, that the question had no bearing on the issue at hand and whether or not we should go in or not go in, whether Luke should blow up the Death Star or not blow up the Death Star. The Death Star was an existential threat that was needed to be taken out. The only question is, does it need to be taken out, and can you do it? Those are the questions you have to ask. Asking about the population of the Death Star has no merit on what's actually being discussed. But to kind of, to like, this weird extrapolation to nonsense, to absurdity, I'm not sure if it's dishonesty or if it's ignorance, and the inability to engage with any kind of a comparison like this. Let's go to point 2. It says, if the answer to 1 is no, then how is this at all analogous? Again, I just explained it. Unless you believe that Luke Skywalker was merely attempting to conduct regime change for the Death Star, which doesn't even make Which doesn't even make sense. Was he drunk when he posted this? Okay, let's finish. Which doesn't even make sense, as it was just a weapon, a tool of the Empire. If you rightly believe that the goal of the Skywalker was to outright destroy the Death Star, then you will understand this little comic doesn't even make sense. Tucker's claim is that you are reckless and irresponsible for calling for regime change in a nation you know nothing about. You attempt to shift the goalposts with this comment. Just to reiterate, Cruz is here suggesting he wants to blow up Iran in a manner similar to the Death Star, i.e. blow it up entirely and kill everyone, etc. Does anyone honestly believe... Raise your hands. Okay, Ted Cruz is a fuckhead, okay? I have no love for that man. But does anyone honestly believe that this is what is being implied by this meme? That meme that we just saw on screen was obviously Ted Cruz calling for the destruction and complete total annihilation of Iran, like Luke Skywalker did to the Death Star. Does anyone believe that's an honest reading of what's going on there? Anyone? One's in chat. I will make fun of you, but I want to hear it. Right? If that's what you honestly believe. MST 3000? No, you're trolling me. You don't believe that. You don't believe that. Okay. Jacob Bake says this meme is small potatoes. It's all small potatoes. You're all. What do you think this show is? 300 bits to say makes sense right to me. By the way, I just had a lobotomy. Fair enough. Only Kinetic Paw says only if we shot Iran right in the thermal exhaust port. Yeah, like it would be absurd to suggest that Ted Cruz wants to shoot Iran in the thermal exhaust port. Like, we understand that trying to stretch out that meme in that direction would be absurd. Obviously, that's not what's meant here. And obviously, that's not what Ted Cruz means by the meme. He's just trying to cover for his inability to answer a question. That's it. Discord one says, I think he would be okay with it, regardless of his intentions. Do I think Ted Cruz would be okay with the annihilation of Iran? Probably, yeah. Fair enough, probably. I don't know. What am I looking at here? No cow Mike, what am I clicking on? Oh, the girlies are fighting. The girlies are fighting. This is an article from 2012. First of all, see, this is why both of these people are fuckheads. People's opinions can change in 12 years. It's not out of the realm of conceivability that Tucker Carlson had his mind changed on foreign intervention, especially when it came to Iran, in the course of 12 years. This isn't a gotcha, right? This isn't a gotcha. It's just not. Yeah. Oh, you mean my opinion changed after I received more information after 12 years and the circumstances changed? Oh, no. I'm a hypocrite. No, that's silly. Ralph Waldo Emerson has a quote that I like to use, and I haven't used it in a while, but it's worth using it again, saying, a foolish consistency is a hobgoblin of little minds. This idea that you have to hold on to a stance because if you don't hold on to that stance, you will be inconsistent. We aren't going for consistency. Consistency isn't the goal. The goal is to be correct. The goal is truth. The goal is to be right. Okay? Consistency and seeking consistency often leads to that. But our consistency shouldn't be the target. You can have a very consistent worldview and just be dead wrong about 1,000 things. Okay? But your worldview can be very consistent. That doesn't matter. What matters is, are you correct? Are you right? Are you dealing with truth? And this is a gotcha. Just, it falls flat, man. It doesn't hit. Better Methodist says short stack hobgoblins turn me on. Well, go to Vosh's stream. He's right over there, buddy. Okay, he's right over there. Ted Cruz, fighter for liberty, or is that when he's running to defend Cancun? Maybe. Maybe, gang. I don't know. I just think it's just all of it's odd. We got another caller. Hello, you're live.
Sorry, let me close out I have it on the. Gotta close the stream.
No, that's fine.
Hey.
Let's write a screenplay. You have to go backstage.
All right. Sorry, I know you prefer camera on.
Yeah, I do.
Sorry if I.
Okay, what's your thoughts?
So I actually wanted to reach out to you because you are, of the people I kind of consume, one of the more principled ones. And what I mean by that is, like, when you're watching like TV shows, there's always a character who has like a set of morals and principles that don't change no matter the situation for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if the main character starts to shift and say, we need to do X, even if the audience doesn't agree with the other character, they don't shift. So like, you're like that on political violence, no matter, a lot of people are starting to shift their opinion on that, you're staying there. So you've got some hope, and I need to get some of that hope off of you. As a Democrat, what is it going to look like for us in the next 3 years? Like, how do we...
What does that mean? What's it going to look like? What do I think is... Are you asking what should we do? Or are you asking me what is probably going to happen?
I mean, maybe both.
Okay. So I'll answer the second first. What is probably going to happen is we're going to have our little internecine fight over abundance and over how much of the microphone we should give the far left, etc. But at the end of the day, I think Trump is governing so poorly that we just win the midterms. But the problem is we'll win by default. We won't actually have to change, right? And actually have to grow and have to reckon with why we lost in 2024. We're just going to win by default because Trump is that bad at governing. So mixed blessings. 2028 is a bit harder to say. I think that that I can't even begin to crystal ball because I don't know what are we going to do once we win the midterms, once we regain the House and maybe the Senate. How are we going to act? And what happens in 2028 depends on how we act. Are we going to simply make a repeat of the same mistakes we did back in 2024? Or are we going to actually try to govern effectively and get things done? I don't know. That's a good question. So that's what I think. So the question on what should we do?
Yeah, how do we fix the Democratic Party, I guess?
Certainly. I think that we need to expunge our extremists. We need to stop playing footsie with them. We need to... Some gatekeeping is good, frankly.
Yeah.
I think that the party, whether it be Republicans or Democrats, that first expunges its far extremist members and influencers, wins. I hope that the left does that. The problem with the left is we're institutionally captured in a way. We are full of staffers and young, kind of really progressive, really far left people in positions of influence for our campaigns and influences for our policy directions. We just need to we need to stop listening to them. They're losers and they're dumb. They're wrong on very particular issues, and they think they are correct in a way that is smug, arrogant, and a turnoff to so many voters. Like if we let the mic from PAs, if we let the far left kind of dictate our policy, we will lose.
But you said the party that expunges their extremists wins, but didn't the opposite just happen?
Oh,
isn't that what the
people
Republicans
say that?
think?
No, I know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we can't ignore the special circumstances of 2024. I think had Biden, we not had that whole situation, I think Trump would have lost. But that threw the wrench in. If we look at 2020, if we look at 2018, if we look at 2022, the voters chose the more moderate positions in every single case. The difference in 2024 was unfortunately the civil war that the left and the Democrats had that kind of split everything. And it allowed the Trump to eke out a win, which wasn't a very big one despite his claims. 2% difference in 3 states means we would be praising Kamala Harris right now as the president. But unfortunately, we did have the Biden situation, and that fucked us.
Yeah. Well, I guess my thing is, like, when I look at it, one of the problems I have with the left is, and you might not have this problem as much because you're online a lot, so like your opinion's out there. But for me, I'm from the rural South. I'm a cishet white male. On appearances, I'm not who the Democratic Party wants. So I find myself in a lot of like trying to get into a lot of circles and participate, but you have those don't do microaggressions, give the voice to other people. You don't need it, so like I can't talk on any issues without that like white male thing being thrown in my face. But the problem I have is like that's the voter block. Like the demographic that wins votes is over 30s white men. And I know that sounds horrible, but like that's what when you look at the demographic breakdown, every time the Republicans win, it's strictly because they don't win any other demographic really, except for those white males. So like, is the Democrat Party going to do anything to try and be less hostile towards that? Or like, is that going to be a part of the process? I remember listening. I listened to Not So Erudite.
Question. Is it? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that here's the thing. I think that people within the Democratic apparatus recognize it's a problem. I think we've passed that. We've passed that stage. We know that there's an issue. Okay, we've recognized and accepted there is an issue. Will it get fixed? I don't know. I'm not given a lot of hope based on the efforts so far. Simply because they go at it and it's these young staffers trying to decide what they think the average 30-plus white male voter would appeal to, right? I talked about this yesterday, I think, a little bit, and I talked to Tracy Woodgrains right after the election. He's a centrist, and he had a small blurb, a small little article he wrote up about why the Kamala's appeals to centrists didn't resonate with him. He did vote for Kamala, but he felt that her appeals to centrism, her appeals to the moderate base fell short, right? They didn't, and we can see this in the turnout, right? Moderates just didn't show up to vote, right? They just didn't.
I haven't seen the like actual numbers on that.
Sure.
I've heard that, but like I haven't seen the
Yeah.
research. I like to I looked up. So the reason I came to my thing about the white men is because I looked at like the Pew Research polls where they did
Certainly.
2018, 2020, or no, what was it? It was 2016, 2018, and 2020, and they looked at the demographics that showed up to vote, not like who voted for Democrat, who voted for Republican, just the demographics that showed up to vote. And every time I looked at one of the demographics that had like less than 30%, it was who the Democrats focus on. People of color, the Latinos, the youth. But then when I look at people who the Republicans always win, the 55 plus, and the white uneducated, they always win them. And when they come out and vote, and they always vote like 70 plus percent. So like, do we have to just try and mobilize those marginalized communities more and get there to basically tell them they're not voting enough? We need
an everything in the kitchen sink policy, right? We do need to do that, but we also need to make inroads within people who have become Trump voters over the last 8 years, right? Because Trump did gain, right? Or at least the turnout suggests that Trump did gain in almost every demographic from 2020 to 2024. Now, again, how much of that is turnout related? That's a different question. I will say that I know people in Pennsylvania who stayed home and didn't vote because of how they didn't see much of a difference between Biden and Trump. I thought they were dumb for that, but that's how they saw it, because they see the extremes on both ends as the same. And they see the left pandering to its extremists, and they see the right pandering to its extremists, and they think, I don't want either of these things, and so fuck it. I'm just not gonna stay home. I'm just not gonna go out. I'm just gonna stay home. Right?
Is that like a perception thing? I feel like we don't pander to our extremists as much. Like our extremists don't have political power. They have like voices.
Hold on.
But like what congressmen? I mean, they lost most of their actually elected officials, except for like AOC, who ended up just moving towards moderation.
The problem is that we have a lot. First of all, Can you name an extremist group that Kamala denounced, a leftist extremist group that Kamala denounced during her campaign, that she disavowed?
That she disavowed? No.
Me neither.
No, I can't.
Right? We always ask the Trump, right? You remember he gave that pish poor answer in 2020 about whether he whether he disavowed white nationals and you know, the KKK and all these things, and he had trouble answering these. And we poo-pooed him for that. But the left, for whatever reason, thinks they can get away with not disavowing their own extremists, right? And not disavowing Antifa and things like that. One of the reasons that Biden won in 2020 and why he won both the primary and the general is because he was willing to push back against a lot of the extremist movements at the time, right? He was willing to disavow, in no uncertain terms, the violence of the BLM riots and things like that. Now, again, he would say things like, well, most of them they're mostly peaceful, and that was literally true, but he was willing to denounce the extremists. Kamala Harris, I can't, like, she tried to just stay silent on it, and I don't think that's enough. I don't think the Democrats, it's enough for them to just stay silent and ignore them and say, well, they're not really elected officials or anything, and they don't really have any power, because they do have power. They have cultural power. You can look at academia. You can look at, you know, these the Chaz, right, zone and other things within very small localities, and it's not a lot of power, but they're loud and they drive discourse. And it's a very easy thing, because a lot of these people don't fucking vote, to just throw them under the bus. And the fact that what worries people is the fact that Kamala wouldn't throw them under the bus. And they're like, why would
Does she just not know they don't vote? Like, is that the problem? Are the young staffers you talked about telling them,
I don't
oh,
know.
that's your voters? Or
I don't know.
All right. I know you got other people to get to. I just feel like the problem is, like, we have a lot of questions that we don't have the answers to, that we need to actually make any progress. You know, like,
sure. Obviously, the more information we got, the better. But I'm just telling you the data as I see it. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll talk
to you later, appreciate buddy. You as always.
Bye-bye. No Cow Mike says the Newsom disavowed all the instances of crime in LA. Didn't matter. Didn't matter to what? Has he been up for election since then? Has there been any votes on any of these things? We look at the polling data. The polling data suggests that people oppose how Trump handled that situation overall. So what do you mean it didn't matter? Like, what do you mean it didn't matter? Why couldn't Kamala just be the perfect mix of everything from Rock's Fist? Well, that's what she tried to do. It failed. She tried to ride both lanes, and it didn't. She tried to straddle that fence and not upset any group. Didn't work. You needed to pick a lane. Honestly. She needed to pick a side. She was scared to do it. She didn't. Infallible foul, you call me a liar, come say it to my face. Call in. I have data showing this. Again, infallible foul. Name one extremist group that Kamala disavowed during her campaign. You posted the clip. Where? DM it to me. I'll play it right now on screen. I'll wait. Give it a few minutes. Let him find it. Send it to me in a DM so I can see it.
As we all know, it was...
So when is this? When's this from? Oops.
As we all know, it was...
Pause. Give me a second. Let people see it. Jesus Christ. Hold on.
Heinous, horrible, and cowardly act. My husband Doug and I are thankful he was not seriously injured. That day, as soon as we saw what was happening, we said a prayer for his well-being. But in the aftermath of this weekend's shooting, one of the questions we now confront is about the way we should engage with one another in this campaign.
Okay, so okay, I know what this is. She's disavowing the assassination attempt on President Trump. Infallible Foul, can you tell me what I'm about to say to you? Can you tell me why I'm about to call you retarded? Can you guess why I might be like, wow, this isn't what I asked for at all, and you're retarded? Because my channel has become propaganda. So I asked, just so the audience is clear, I asked for an example of Kamala disavowing leftist extremist groups. And Infallible Foul here called me a liar. And I said, okay, well, give me a clip of her doing this. And he provided me a clip that we just saw of her disavowing Thomas Crooks, who tried to assassinate President Trump. He wasn't far leftist. He's a registered Republican, first of all. Wasn't associated with any leftist groups I know of. Was basically a lone actor, psychotic gunman. I'm not asking, nor did I ask, for an example of her denouncing violence. I asked for an example of her denouncing something like Antifa, right? Something like one of those extreme pro-Palestinian groups, right? The globalized intifada people, right? That's what I want. That's what people were worried that she was playing footsie with during the election. No one serious was worried, no one winnable, I should say, was worried she was playing footsie with the assassination of President Trump. Okay, that was Jacob Blake. I asked during the campaign. During the campaign, no cow Mike. The Kenosha riots were in 2014, right? Pretty sure. Could be wrong. Oh, 2020. Yeah, no, this is a great example. Yes, she did that in 2020, and what happened? Who won? Who won that election? Biden and Harris. Thank you. True. True. Yes. They disavowed their extremists, and they fucking won. 2024 comes around. Biden gets pushed off the ticket. Kamala becomes the main character, right? The primary champion. Which extremist groups on the left, which extreme ideology on the left, which of those people at that time did she distance herself from or disavow? So Kamala should have attacked the police in 2024? No. What? Why are you guys doing these gymnastics? What I'm saying is just true. It's just fucking true. That she played footsie with them. She did not disavow them because she felt she needed them to win. And my hypothesis, what I am telling you, is that instead of helping her to win, these people, A, don't really vote, and 2, were an albatross around her neck that people like Trump and his campaign could point to and say, hey, Kamala Harris, she's not disavowing them for a reason. And that was able to do the work. No cow Mike, what riots were taking place in 2024? Well, they had the whole, what's that, 2024 or 2023? Pretty sure it's 2024. The Colombia stuff, I could be wrong. But the pro-Palestine bullshit that was happening, was that during the summer of 2024? Pretty sure. Let's write a screenplay. I'm talking to the chat. You might get your turn, but it becomes, look, if you're going to whine the whole time, I'm not going to let you in. Why would I reward whining? Because it might be content. What's up? What do you got? Time to shine, brother. You're muted on your end.
I'm here. My bad. So, here's my first question. I have a take on Iran. Do you think a Muslim country would actually nuke Jerusalem?
Depending on the country, yeah. Not Jerusalem,
Well, I mean,
but they would absolutely nuke. They would nuke somewhere in Israel. Yeah. Jerusalem has the Dome of the Rock and things like that. Probably wouldn't touch that.
Exactly.
But they would. Why wouldn't they nuke one of the other cities there?
Well, okay. So I forget if Iran is Sunni or Shiite, but is the Dome of the Rock holy to both groups?
I don't know enough about it to say.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of think if North Korea has a nuclear bomb and China and Russia have a nuclear bomb, maybe the reason why there's been so much violence for the past few decades is because the West has always tried to prevent Iran from having the bomb. And what if Iran will make peace with Israel if they're just simply allowed to be a nuclear power? I think they just want to be on the same level as all these other countries. I don't think they want to use it at all.
Why do you think that Iran wants peace with Israel? What's leading you to believe that?
No, I'm saying that, what if the violence is because the West has been trying to prevent them from becoming on the same par as Russia and North Korea? Maybe that's the reason why they are so violent.
Well, I mean, possible, but I don't think that's true. I think that they have, at least from their actions, shown that they are willing, they want to increase their influence over the region. That instability in the region helps them to gain power, and so that they have acted by hiring proxies and utilizing proxies to destabilize the region, by funding Hezbollah, funding Hamas, funding a ton of other terrorist groups, to do exactly that. And that way they keep their regional enemies weak, and they make themselves strong.
Yeah, no, I totally, it's definitely a complicated situation. I mean, before 79, we were essentially allies with them, right?
Well, then the Ayatollahs got into power, right? They had their little revolution, and they couped the government, and they were able to install a theocracy, which were not our friends, and not the friends of pretty much anyone in the region. They've had their war with Iraq, and after that was settled.
Was Saddam Hussein the same type of Muslim as the Iranians?
I don't think so. No, I don't. I think Saddam Hussein, I wouldn't consider him a practicing very religious person.
None of the leaders are real Muslims, right?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you just want to talk briefly on maybe the USA idea, because a lot of people don't like it, but it's funny on Instagram. I do get Israelis and other Jews and other people liking the idea.
Tell us your idea.
So, well, for Palestine and Israel to become the 51st state of America, I think at this point it's the best way to peace, because Iran is not going to attack America directly. I think we're all aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they don't have to attack it directly. They can attack it indirectly. And also, I do think that if we were to strike them, or they felt they could get away with it, they would strike at our bases in the region.
Oh,
I mean,
agree.
remember Hezbollah blew up a bunch of Marines at a base we had.
Yeah, dude, I really hope Trump
to
does
Iran
not use those bunker. I just saw in the news, those bunker buster bombs have never been used in combat. I really hope he doesn't do it. Because they will attack our bases then. I think that's a really dangerous idea to actually do that.
Well, I mean, the question becomes, is it more or less dangerous than allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons?
Well, the current strikes are slowing it down, but they've been slowing it down for a long time. So it's kind of an endless cycle. But, I really, to go back to my idea, if Israel becomes America, I think the situation in the Middle East does change dramatically.
How realistic do you think that your proposal is? That Israel and
I
Palestine
think it is realistic.
51st state.
I mean, I really do. I do think it's realistic. I mean, we're talking about our relationship is greatest ally right now. There are so many dual citizens. I mean, you can't use the argument that it's so far from the mainland because of Hawaii. They made Hawaii a state. I mean, how is that possible? So you can't use that argument.
We have a direct line to Hawaii, though. There's no we don't have to go through any other waters of adversarial territories to reach Hawaii. Whereas Israel, we'd have to go to the Mediterranean or the other way, right? And right,
okay.
I mean, the Houthis right now are attacking ships within
Americans, right? Yeah, they are.
That region.
Well, yeah, but Trump made a deal with them and they stopped attacking, right? A couple weeks ago.
I don't know about that.
I think I saw that.
I just think that if American troops were on the ground in Palestine and Israel, they would be subject to the same attacks that the IDF gets subject to. And they would probably respond in similar ways. And I don't think that is an actual.
So essentially, if the land becomes USA, that would be like an immediate World War III scenario.
No.
Is that what you think?
Not an immediate World War III scenario. But why would Hamas stop attacking? Why would Hamas stop attacking? They would continue.
Well, first of all, I think some members of Hamas and some members of Israel should be prosecuted for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Both sides have committed those crimes.
Fair enough.
No, so I'm saying if they all become Americans, the American justice system will probably be much stronger than the current situation to prosecute them.
I just don't see this, I don't see any stomach for it in the American people. I don't see anyone wanting this. No one is proposing this in any serious manner, right? You were proposing it, but I haven't seen any
I'm trying to get it go viral.
Do this. I haven't seen anyone who is super familiar with the region propose this. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Huh. All right. Fair enough.
Okay, is there anything else want to say to sell me on it, or anything else you want to say in general?
Well, I would say I'm more or less planting the seed of the idea. I know it's not going to happen overnight. Actually, it can't happen overnight because of all the complications with politics and the international politics. But
certainly it would take.
I just think it really is the best pathway to peace because, I mean, let's say Iran keeps funding proxy groups and they keep attacking the newly instated 51st state. There's going to be a response to that. Then there is going to be a legitimate response from America, not like it is now, where they haven't responded.
Sure. I mean, given this new world where it is a 51st state, we would, I assume, defend that state like we would any other state.
Yes.
I just don't. none of them want to be the 51st state.
Well, if it means peace, then I don't really care what they want, because what we all want deep down is peace.
Sure, but the problem is if people really don't want it and they don't want it enough, they will go to war to stop it or to rescind it.
So more war. Great.
Yes, unironically. If we came in and tried to annex Israel, do you not think they'd be like, no, we don't want you to do this?
I mean, Israelis.
Yes, Israelis, Hamas, all of them, Palestinians. I don't think any of them say we want this to happen.
Yeah, but there are some Jews who think that they're going to get 2,000 slaves one day. So really, those people are just idiots. A lot of Jews would like the idea. Yeah, that's a radical Orthodox interpretation that the Jews will enslave the world. Even though the same prophecy says everyone in the world will be pious and holy, to them, that means you're slaves. You're sick. They're sick in the head.
Okay.
They're not real Jews, and they really make me angry. Those are the only ones who would be against it, because most Israelis love America, right?
I don't know if they do. At least not now.
A lot of them.
But
a lot of them.
Fair enough. Okay, buddy. Thanks for calling in.
All right. I'll talk to you. Bye.
Well, it's a unique opinion. Okay, probably the last caller for the night, unless we get someone super interesting. Tuna Chip, you're live.
What's going on, Wick? We gotta have a talk, man. What's this? What's with this Kamala stuff? What's with this? The radicals disavowal, this guilt by not even actual association, but by lack of denunciation. Where are you coming from with this, man?
I'm saying that one of the obstacles that people had when voting for Kamala Harris is that they felt that she represented the radical ring of the leftist party. And her refusal to just say a few words to denounce them allowed that feeling to fester, and it led to a lot of people, enough people at least, staying home on election day because they thought that, oh, you know what? I don't see any real difference between Trump and Kamala, so fuck it. I'm just going to stay home. I don't have a moderate voice that I think represents me, so I'm just going to stay home.
Wick, this is I think maybe for you as a person who's relatively center, like pretty hard center, this is going to be like
I'm not
what
center.
You think because
I'm not center. I'm not a centrist. I'm a Democrat.
Okay, well, center left, whatever you want to say. I'm saying in particular, the reason that people didn't vote for Kamala is because everybody disavowed Kamala. Everybody felt like Kamala belonged to somebody else. Everybody who was radical.
Thank you for the raid, Admiral Gibbs. Welcome to the show. Anyway, continue, please.
Everybody who was radical thought that Kamala wasn't radical enough. Everybody that was moderate thought she was too radical. It has nothing to do with her. Like, these are projections from exterior.
Thank you for the raid of 20 people. Really appreciate you. Welcome to the show. We're doing call-ins and debates and talking about Iran and talking about, apparently right now, Kamala Harris. But go on, please. Sorry.
Well, I don't want to even talk about Kamala Harris necessarily. I want to talk about what is, I think, superstition. I think that you're superstitious here, and to a point where you're walking in the wrong direction. People didn't understand who Kamala was because Kamala barely had a platform, barely had an identity, because she barely had enough time to construct and run under one. Kamala was essentially the, woman that they wheeled out every once in a while to say whatever Biden couldn't because he was shaking and jiving inside of his hospital bed.
Yes.
So why do you think it is that everybody felt like Kamala wasn't a person who stood for them?
So, well, yeah, including moderates, to be clear. But Alexander Wren for $10 says people who didn't want to vote for Kamala wanted Trump to win to force a change in politics. Yes, a lot of them, like the Mike from PAs and things like that, they're accelerationists. They have this ability, this idea, and it's not an unfounded idea because this is what happened after 2016. after Trump won in 2016, I think the Democratic establishment panicked, and they gave a lot of influence and power to far left, kind of far super progressive people, saying, well, you know what, Trump won and we need to fight their extremists with our extremists. And so they kind of armed them rhetorically and gave them positions of influence and power and listened to them when it came to trying to decide what to do. This turned out to be a mistake. They fortunately were able to somewhat correct that during the 2020 election. And they were like, okay, Biden recognized that we have to denounce some of these people. We have to denounce some of this shit. And they were able to do that. And that allowed them to win both the primary and subsequently squeak out a win in the election, the general election. Fast forward to 2024, however, and that, outside of the elephant in the room of Biden being pushed out and cooed, basically, Kamala was seen as, like you said, someone that didn't represent anyone. And like I said earlier, she didn't pick a lane. She needed to pick a lane. And her trying not to pick a lane meant she was playing footsies with all sides. And moderates just said, you know what, if you're going to be playing footsies with your extremists, we're just going to stay home. And this bore out in the actual election, and they just stayed home.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and staying home is always the default position for all people, relatively speaking. That is kind of the crisis that America's in generally, is that people, when people think that the election doesn't matter, especially when it's status quo versus status quo, moderate versus moderate, you're really like looking at, well, why do I even need to go to the polls? And if it's too radical, they also feel like, well, what's the point? Everything's going to go fucking tits up, no matter who wins. So I really just have to like focus on local politics for a little bit or something. But like, I'm telling you that this superstition that what Kamala needed to do was run around and disavow every person that other people identified her with.
Didn't have to do everything.
No. I'm saying
just once,
because there's a two-facedness there. That like a lack of identity, she would be asked to disavow the moderates, to disavow the extremists, she'd have to disavow the entire world. And then whose fucking candidate is she?
Her own. Look, this worked before with Clinton. Clinton was seen as potentially buddying up to extremists during the 1992 election, right? He was seen as cozying up to some like black nationalists and these things like that. And there was a concern that he was going to be kind of like a Manchurian candidate, right? They never really, the extreme right never really dropped that line, but it didn't sell with the American people because he had instances, you've heard me talk and you know what I'm referring to. He had what was called a Sister Souljah moment. Sister Souljah was a black rapper at the time who had made some really yikesy comments about white people. And he went to a leftist function, a leftist organization, and during the leftist dinner that they were having, he stood up and denounced her, right? And this allowed him to put daylight between him and that group in a way that was natural, and the public bought that, and it helped him win election. All I'm asking is for Kamala Harris to pick one. Doesn't have to do it to all. Just pick one. I suggest Hassan Piker, okay? Invite him on the podcast, right? Go on his podcast or whatever. Agree to go on his show. Let him do his spiel and things like that. And then turn to him and say, you know what? We don't want you in our party. We think that your comments towards Jewish individuals and your advocacy for terrorist groups such as Hezbollah and the Houthis is disgusting and gross, and we don't want anything to do with you. Had she done that, 400 electoral votes, easy dubs, she wins, cross the board, much cheering, much rejoicing. I'm being a little hyperbolic with that. But she needed to pick a fall guy. And you know the beauty of this is? Leftists don't fucking vote. So they can easily be thrown under the bus. You're not losing a vote by doing that.
Wick, you're running straight into the idea of disavow. She has no presented values.
That would present a value.
This is taking a person who has a non-identity and saying, guess what? You don't need to work on. It's not that you didn't have a campaign and you didn't
understand
have any
that would present a
policies.
value to the public, right?
What would have presented the value is if she actually got off her ass and went down to where all of the floods were happening or did anything involved at all, right? What it would have, like, if she would have presented via action, there were plenty of things going on in America that she could have done that were productive and that were internal and weren't just like going on.
Look, all I'm saying, dude,
Hassan Piker's stream.
Hold on. All I'm saying is that
superhero-
until people start listening to me, you're going to continue to lose. That's it. You're going to continue to have the same result you did because you're doing the exact same thing you did before. You're going to play footsie with the extremists. People are going to see you as a party of extremists, and you will continue to lose. Luckily for you,
sorry, you want her to go on an extremist stream and disavow him, and that you think that that's really going to make people.
I think it would. I think it would absolutely have an impact. Would it be enough to overcome all the problems? Right? Maybe not, but it would be a step. And I think that this is part of the problem that the Democratic Party is having. Fortunately for the Democratic Party, both fortunately and unfortunately, it looks like Trump is self-destructing, right? Like Trump's administration is just proving incapable of governing. And I think that the public's going to punish him for that in the midterms, at least. But the problem is we have a chance right now to stop being fucking losers and start being winners. And start actually getting with what the American people want. What the American people don't want is these leftist extremists. No one likes them. They're less than 1% of the population, right? Everyone hates these guys, but we've given them the microphone for some fucking reason. And we have Europeans, right? We have non-Americans, Canadians, right? Saying all this shit like, well, this is what America should do. They should just model after our socialist extremist policies. No, fuck off. You're not American. You don't know. You just don't.
You're not recognizing, I think, the scale of effect of doing nothing about the floods and having no campaign identity versus not disavowing glup, shitto, nonsense internet people that if she went on Hassan Piker's stream, he's a big streamer, but my God, is he small in the political world. And if she went on his stream, it would act as more of an act of validation, even via the disavowal. It would still project him towards more people. Kamala Harris is known by every United States citizen, every ethnicity, every age. Nobody above the age of fucking 50 knows who Hassan Piker is. No little fucking 5-year-old black girl listening to a CD looks on the TV and says, oh, Hassan Piker, I know who that is. They see the fucking vice president running for president.
This is beautiful, right? Because no one knows who Hassan Piker is, Kamala Harris can define him and could use him as a foil, as a sacrificial lamb, and say, look at this terrorist fucking sympathizer that, again, a lot of people think that the Democrats, rightly or wrongly, cozy up to. I think they're wrong, of course, but that's the rumor. That's the most effective ad that Trump had was she's for they them, right? I'm for you.
What I'm really worried about is that I've never heard Kamala Harris go out and say that DaBaby made homophobic comments. I'm really worried. He's more famous than Hassan. This is silly, dude.
It's not
this is
silly.
Really absurd.
It's not, and it works, and it's
There are
worked
priorities,
before.
man, and having actual
We have
fucking
actual evidence that this has an effect. In a previous election where they did this, exactly what I'm advocating for, and it worked. And you're saying, well,
You know what else helped? He had a fucking campaign policy that he was running with that was counter to the narrative of the party at the time. Tough on crime was a moderate policy. It wasn't just saying, hey, this black chick hates white people, and I just want to make sure that you lefties know I'm not really cool with the nouveau racism.
You do understand that this is how the right has gained so much power, is they single out nobodies. Look at the libs of TikTok. She singles out nobodies, and she platforms them, she pedestals them, and says, this is an example of this group. And people believe it because they see the nonsense that they're saying. This tactic of taking a nobody like Hassan Piker or a Mike from PA or any fucking bread tuber, right? Platforming them, saying, these motherfuckers are poison and we want nothing to do with them, absolutely would be successful.
This is you're not recognizing the fundamental difference between the people that are watching these people, though. She's a peddler of confirmation bias, not a peddler of like generic propaganda.
Okay, are you suggesting, like, I want to make it clear, I'm not suggesting this is the only problem she had, right? And that this would be like this magic bullet. I'm saying that this would fix a fundamental problem she had. Would it have been enough? I don't know, but it would have. She would have done better had she done it this way. Let me read some of these super chats because I got to make some money.
Yep, do it.
Sure. $20 from Alexander Rin. So people thought the Democrats would be forced to change the first time. They knew they would be forced to change the second time. The stable old-timers in charge are waiting for America to realize that they were right all along. Thank you for the $20. $10 from Andrew Steele to say, how does someone like Wick separate himself from the leftists without grouping them as pro-Palestine, Marxist, or socialist communists? How do you convince the public you are not with them? Well, one of the ways you do that, Andrew Steele, is by condemning them, right? When you fail to condemn them, it does make it easy to point you out and say, well, you know, you're them. But anyway,
you don't think that you could take from the book that Trump does, where you just simply say, "That's not me." Like the deflection, this idea that, and this is what I was saying originally, the radical left is no closer to Kamala Harris than they are to Donald Trump. Both of them want to pull a oligarch class out of their position. They just have a difference of opinion of what that oligarch class is defined by, whether or not it is a cultural progressive left or whether or not it is a...
Hold on, Dwight Baldwin, I skipped your super chat. Thank you for the membership. Let me see. What did I skip? Hold on. Dwight Baldwin, $5. Sorry, I did, actually. I apologize.
Yeah, you're good.
Dwight Baldwin, Wick, what's your take on the Karen Reed trial? Crying minds want to know. I don't know enough about it. I don't have an opinion. I don't know enough about it. I can't give you my opinion. My opinion is I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I haven't followed it. I'm sorry. Thanks for the $5, though.
$15 more and he'll do a homework assignment. He'll go read an article or two.
Dylan Bowser, member for 8 months, saying you skipped Dwight's super chat. Well, we got to it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Well, I did mean to interrupt you, but it was for a good cause, which was me making money. Go ahead, Tuna Chip.
All I'm saying is that this idea that she has to answer to anybody that she gets told by the other side that she is somehow more proximal to. That's just silly. Also, like she's like definitively put between a rock and a hard place. If every time that the Republican Party says you're blank, she has to say back, I'm not blank.
Just has to do it once.
For each individual radical
not for each
party.
Individual, for once. Just once.
Okay.
Especially if it's a nonsense person, like a no-name person who she can define. She can use that as kind of like the sacrificial lamb where all the sins are placed upon this one person. So and Hassan's a great example of this because he has ties to a lot of these retard left, right?
Wait, can I check with you really quick? Do you
Please.
consider Hamas to not be part of this? Like the disavowal of Hamas, is that not significant enough?
Hamas is
doing the talks with Netanyahu.
Yeah, no, it's not. No, I'm talking about an American leftist organization, like some organization in America, right? Her disavowing of Hamas is just like disavowing Thomas Crooks, right? The assassin guy. I mean, that's just everyone did, except for
even though the defining characteristic.
The people who didn't got
from the right and the moderate,
pretty hard, like the Jamal.
The right
Bowman.
and the center, though, what you have to recognize, the right and the center, the entire reason that they are like able to critique Kamala with the radicals is because the radicals are these like fervent anti-Zionists, and she goes out of her way to say that she has always held a special place in her heart for Israel, and that you don't think that that's a direct enough a response. So she's being a little too pussyfoot with that.
No, I think what she needed to do is condemn a lot of the excesses of the American pro-Palestinian movement. Not the Hamas, obviously. That's the bare minimum. If she couldn't condemn Hamas, then like that's like not condemning the Ayatollahs, right, in Iran, right? Like obviously these are just standard American positions. Yeah, she needed to again pick someone. Doesn't have to be Hassan Piker, but I would suggest Hassan Piker.
It just feels a little bit like pulling a hobo off the street and saying, "I'm not with this addict," or it's like pulling like
that
you
might
like
actually be kind of
world.
effective. That's what the right does. You understand that that's what the right does. They pick randos, right? They pick nobodies.
But
they use them as scapegoats and say, "Look at this is the left. This is the left. We're not this." It's fucking effective. It's super effective.
It's not effective at doing the thing that you're looking to do. It's effective at retaining confirmation bias. But when you're trying to get rid of when you're trying to break a bias, it doesn't do that much. Anybody you're not seeing people who are pro-trans looking at fucking any of this like anti-trans propaganda and going like, you know what? Maybe we should take the surgeries away from these freaks. That's not what it does. It appeals to people who were already scared, already had the opinion, and they just needed something to excite an already internal like position. You're not going to get the same. The left doesn't have some kind of like issue where there's a bunch of moderates being like, you know what, I don't like these Palestinian protesters. We need to pick one and slander them. We need to pick Hassan Piker. The average person has no fucking thoughts about Hassan Piker unless you're trying to appeal to like
they do have thoughts.
Like
they have a lot of thoughts about radical leftist extremists.
And you think that Hassan Piker is the person that you pull them on, and if you really want to do this like campaign, wouldn't it behoove you to just go smaller than that? Even if that's really your argument, is that we need to become
I could be convinced to do someone else, right? Hassan's just a guy everyone in this space knows, so he's a good example. But I'd be okay with someone smaller like Mike from PA or Denims or someone like that. That'd be fine.
What about someone who's not a content creator and was like actually committing violent acts of in the protests themselves?
Go for it.
Okay. You don't think that the arrests, you don't think that the breaking up of the protests, you don't think that those are sufficient?
Was Kamala Harris doing that?
Kamala Harris was actively supporting people breaking up the protests, specifically when they were doing occupations of school property, and specifically when there was when the Jewish students were being kicked off of campus. Although that seemed like it was also like a bit of a
Sierra Fuck says I would keep it on Hassan. She gets added point of saying he gets X millions of views online, like he's a big name. Yeah, like I think Hassan's different. Radical Coder says that Hassan's audience is winnable. No, it's not. No, it's not. And this is the lie.
Policy, man. This is what you're right. Okay, this is an irritation that I have with any of these.
Please.
Like, there's a very specific view in the center left that people don't care about material change. They care about whether or not people are being abused at Amazon. They care, like, how do you think people get to Hassan's chat at all? They're mad about something that is happening near them or something that seems like it is total bullshit. They become disenfranchised with capitalism because the left and the right parties of the official state parties, neither one is doing anything to break this up. when you have people pissing inside of bottles, people being underpaid. The closest we got to someone standing against it was Bernie. And what did the DNC do? They fucking robbed the election from him.
Hold on. Which primary, right, did Bernie win?
Bernie was a
he lost because people didn't vote for him.
Other than the in-house party, all positions that were not.
This is just a myth that Bernie bros say that like it was stolen. No, he lost. He lost. He did not get the votes he needed because the Democratic Party rejected him.
No. Okay. Also, yes, they did reject him, obviously.
The voters.
Because they don't
the
like his
Democratic
position.
Party voters, the people who vote, rejected him.
No, man.
They voted against him. They voted for Clinton.
Every single dropout going out of their way, even though they agreed more with Bernie on policy, to say, go ahead and give it to Biden. You don't think that was like a big fucking deal? You don't think that having like 1 million people drop out who were a little bit more radical suddenly just pull back all of their radicalism the second that it's Bernie versus Biden? You don't think that was like a big push from the DNC?
Oh, if you're talking like, I think you have even less evidence for the 2020 election than you do for the 2016. I thought you were talking about the 2016. The 2020, yeah, like that. Obviously, the people who were voting in the primaries did not want Bernie to win. They did not want Bernie to be the face of the party. And they voted accordingly. Endorsements.
What was Bernie supposed to do?
Right?
Let's talk about this here. What was Bernie supposed to do if he wanted to get elected?
Well, he needs positions that the voters would vote for, right? He needs to have positions that the average American voter, and to win a primary, the average primary voter would actually vote for.
Where did his supporters
he did
come
not
from?
have that.
Where did his supporters come from?
Online.
Because he had a good chunk
Frankly,
of the delegation.
online.
No. What about him got him support?
He was seen as a genuine actor, and I know a lot of Trump voters who are kind of Bernie bros themselves, right? And they see him as a firebomb to the system in the same way that Trump was. Accelerationists, people want to destroy the system, people who want to upend the status quo entirely, they see Bernie as kind of a way to do that. Unfortunately for Bernie, is that most Democrats don't want that upending, right? They don't want that kind of firebomb. Fortunately for Trump, a lot of Republican voters and a lot of Republican primary voters wanted that, so he was able to get the election.
A lot of Democrats wanted it too. To be clear, all the people who stayed away because they would rather Trump get in there. Like, I know that this is a hard thing to believe, but I'm saying right now, the radical contingent is a third party that as soon as the Republicans do not have a radical runner, the Democrats will win if they pick a radical runner, because everybody thinks the entire system is fucked. You have if you have three parties and one thinks that the system is fucked, and it just comes down to who that person, like, if you have two moderates and a radical, the radical will win, is what I'm saying. So to push away the radical in an instance where it very much so would have worked out seems a very deliberate plot for the DNC to keep the status quo of their own party in play.
Do you think that Bernie would have won in 2020 against Trump?
Yes, if it was Bernie versus Trump, I think it would have been a very
Why?
narrow
Because
spread.
they had the firebomb already. Why they need another one? Trump was the firebomb.
What are you talking about?
Trump was the firebomb.
And?
Bernie won, or not Bernie, I'm sorry. Biden won because people wanted a return to the status quo. They wanted a return to normalcy, right? They were tired. They were exhausted after the 4 years with President Trump. And they wanted, we're just tired of this destruction, right? And they wanted something normal back. And so they voted for Biden. Why would they vote for Bernie? He would just be more destruction in a different way.
People did. Okay, first off, I don't think any Democrat is looking at what Bernie's positions were and calling it a destruction. Student debt being paid off, increasing pay for healthcare, going directly against like corporate interest. Like these are things that people both on the radical left and the radical right and a good number of young and working class people would have voted for if there was an actual place on the ballot for it.
They didn't, though. They didn't. When the primaries came and they had a chance to elect Bernie, they did not. They chose otherwise.
Yeah, quote, chose. I really do not buy it, man.
Okay.
Regardless, we can have that disagreement. The main and well, we can close up this section and get you back onto your other stuff. I'm telling you right now, though, that if every single time that somebody gets called a leftist, that the Democrats have to disavow everything they do, no matter how small they are, if they're a glup shitto, if they're actually actively not put in a position of widespread acknowledgement, and then suddenly we have to lift them up to national popularity in order to make it so that we can say, actually, this person's crazy. You're just going to build that radical contingent that you're trying to deal with, right? This is why these things happen. You platform a radical person just to say this guy sucks, he's going to get fans.
I just think that we have, the evidence of the past 8 years just disagrees with this. But thank you for coming, Tuneship. I really appreciate you. Let you go.
No problem, bud. See you.
Bye-bye. Yeah. Insanity is continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Right? Like, if only we go Marxist this time, right? If only we go more radical, more left this time, surely it will work this time. It's just not going to. The American public doesn't want that. You can say they should want that, but that's a different question. They don't want that. They vote against it. Every time it comes up for a ballot in any kind of national stage, they vote against it. Zero Fox is right. Trump barely won. The undecideds that were afraid of Comrade Kamala get scared away and didn't show her when orange. Absolutely. The moderates decided the election, and the moderates didn't see a significant difference between Trump and Kamala, and therefore most of them stayed home. What the data suggests. What's a spinda? Is that a slur? What's a spinda? Infallible foul. Hey, you didn't vote in 2020, and yet we won. It looks like turning off people like you makes us win. Based. That's my whole point. Here, every time we try to reach out to a radical leftist, we lose 10 voters. We gain 1 and lose 10. Probably being a little hyperbolic with the ratio there, but you get my point. Okay, we are 8:40. We are 2 hours and 40 minutes in, and I will talk to you later, gang. Tomorrow there won't be a stream, probably not, unless something crazy happens. But Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be talking to Counterpoints. We're going to be talking to Lycan. We're trying to bully Dev, and if you know Dev, bully him into joining the show. And we're trying to bully No Opinion into joining the show. We're talking about Iran. We're going to have a panel and debate on Iran. What level of military intervention is okay? When would it be okay? Should we do any strikes in Iran? And to what degree? Should we have boots on the ground? All that. But nope, man, I got to eat. So we went for 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes actually, on my lazy day. So we're going to end the stream. I love you guys. I'll see you Friday.